Tonight I celebrate my love for you. It seems the natural thing to do. Tonight, we'll leave the world behind us. Tonight, I celebrate my love for you. And the midnight stars are gonna come shining through. Come for the politics, stay for the awful renditions of your favorite songs. I don't know what's gonna happen to you, baby, but I do know that I love you. You walk around the park with that all up in the sky. You do know that I want you. Let's dance, let's shout, shout. Shake your body down to the ground. Let's dance, let's shout, shout. Shake your body down to the ground. Let's dance, let's shout, shout. Shake your body down to the ground. Let's dance, let's shout, shout. Shake your body down to the ground. Oh, gotta get warmed up. That's how I warm up. I don't know how you warm up, because that's your business. How I warm up is my business. You see how that works? You might do some mouth exercises. I sing. I love how I have the top of my head is completely gone. Maybe if I crouch down like this. I love it though. It makes my head look smaller. I have a giant head. Wow, look who it is. If it isn't the backstabbing Alice. Alice played a mean prank on Our Vote Counts today, you guys. In honor of her favorite day, Fool's Day. Yeah, you got us, Alice. You know what? The next time you pull that stunt, you know what I'm going to do? Oh, I'm not even going to tell you. I'm going to let you wait to receive it in the mail. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are here for a town hall, then you've come to the right place because we have a town hall for you, okay? We are waiting for Ruth Fortune. That's a name, honey. That is a substantial name. Ruth Fortune is running for the U.S. House of Representatives out of the state of Connecticut, District 1. District 1. The candidate before her that we just talked to was running for District 6. That's why I got 6 on my mind, right? She's running for District 1 in the state of Connecticut. The state of Connecticut. Perhaps you've heard of it. It has a lot of consonants in it. You probably can't even spell Connecticut. Let's see if she's around. She isn't. Ruth. I love her name, Ruth Fortune. You know what? Sometimes I wish I had a different name. Like Ayana has a beautiful meaning. It means beautiful flower. I don't like it when I do my scarf like that. I guess it's more appropriate. I don't know. Anyway, sometimes I wish my name was something else. I don't know what. Perhaps the people in the chat. Oh, thank you, you backstabber. Thanks, Alice. Oh, Ruth is here. I'm going to tell Ruth what you did, Alice. When she gets to Congress, she's going to write a law that gets back at you. But thanks. Appreciate you. We love you, Alice. Love you. Ruth, 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 Ruth. Oh, you know what? I'm sitting here just running my mouth. I haven't even shared this. And I'm the freaking moderator. What am I doing? Ruth. Her name is Ruth. Such a beautiful name. Yesterday we had a Tabitha. Biblical name week? Is that what this is? Yesterday we had a Tabitha. Today we have a Ruth. When I was a young girl, my mother would make me watch those old-timey movies, those old biblical films. The Book of Ruth, Judah Ben-Hur. What's that other one? The Robe. Have you all seen The Robe? I have. Many times. Some of them against my will. One of my favorites, though, the Ten Commandments. With Yul Brynner. Not that other guy. Not that other guy. You know who I'm talking about. Ruth.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Hello, Ruth.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Can you see me now?
No, I can't. Yes, there you are.
Hello.
Hello, Ruth.
Great to be here.
Great to have you here with us. We're so happy that you are here. We love to do this. Why do I sound like a robot? I don't know. But welcome to our Vote Counts TikTok Live Town Hall. To the people in the audience are probably the regulars that we always have here. You guys, remember, if you have a question for our candidate, Ruth Fortune, you are welcome to hit that multi-guest and come up and ask her yourself, or you can leave it in the chat and I will read it, or she may read it. She has eyes. She can see. Also, please be kind in the chat. Please use TikTok friendly language. That is a reminder for myself and the candidate as well. We want only soft, gentle words. We like a good 3-ply over here. Also, share. Ruth, have you shared this with your followers? Do they know you're here? Do people know you're here, Ruth, and that you're running for Congress?
I believe it's been shared. That was going to be my next question for you. I believe that we shared it.
Okay, but from your account, have you shared it? Like, have you looked, that bottom arrow, you click that and it says, when it comes up, it says share.
Do you still have me? Let me try to share right now.
Are those your babies?
Do you see children in the picture?
I hear the kids.
Yes, my 6-year-old is having I can hear her having a really bad meltdown right now. I'm not sure about what, but this morning it was about not wanting to wear her uniform and not having the right uniform. So she's my animated one. So I think that's what you're hearing.
Does she know that you're running for Congress? We don't have time for this. You're running for Congress.
I know, she does.
These kids, I swear, we've had kids and dogs and cats. They don't care. They don't care that mommies and daddies are running for office. They really couldn't care less. But I'm here to tell you, it's important. I have 2 kids myself, but they are 21 and 18. They still sound like that, though. They still make those kinds of noises.
Yeah.
So
sadly. I'll try to mute myself when I'm not talking.
Fine. It's okay. It's clearly this. I understand that it's late. You're at home doing this. Whatever noises happen, we just go with the flow. We go with the flow. Okay. We just go with the flow. All right. Let's see what we got here. Ruth, welcome to OVC. Our Vote Counts. I have to get to the intro material. I don't know why I didn't add it where it was supposed to be added. But Our Vote Counts is a nonpartisan coalition of citizens from all across the country. Myself, I am in Ohio, from diverse states and backgrounds, united by a shared commitment to empowering voters and promoting candidates who stand for integrity, inclusion, and accountability in the upcoming elections. Our Vote Counts is more than a name. It's a promise, a movement, and a rallying cry for democracy Together, we are shaping the future one informed vote at a time. Welcome to the House, Ruth Fortune. Woo!
Pleasure to
Ruth,
be here. Thank you for having me.
thank you for allowing us to share your platform with the world. Ruth is from Hartford, Connecticut, and she began her life in the U.S. facing the uncertainty of being an undocumented child from Haiti. Wow. Yet through years of hard work and determination, she went on to become an attorney. Hey, me too. And a leader in her community by serving on the Hartford Board of Education. Wonderful. An arc she often describes as proof that even the most difficult beginnings can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Absolutely. Ruth says we have enough career politicians who have never personally navigated systemic barriers. We need leaders like her who understand a single law can mean the difference between despair and dignity because they have lived it. Ah, that is so true, honey. So true. Ruth's Connecticut District 1 is centered around Hartford and includes parts of Hartford County, which is a majority of the district. Is it Litchfield County?
Yes.
And Middlesex County. The population is around 735,000 people, a lot of people. Median age is around 40. Highly urban, 94% urban. It has a nice little mix here, about 57% white, 18% Latino, 14 to 15% Black, 5 to 6% Asian. Very nice. It says here that the incumbent is John B. Larson. He's a Democrat, right?
Yes.
He is a Democrat. Okay. Ruth, for the people, tell us more about yourself and why you are doing this crazy thing, running for office.
Thank you. First, thank you so much for having me and for giving me a chance to share more about this campaign and why I'm in the race. Politics for me has always been personal, as you mentioned in your very kind introduction. My family moved here from Haiti. I was 12 at the time. I was undocumented for the first decade, my first decade here in the US. And I was fortunate, despite being undocumented, I graduated high school. I managed to get to college and I waitressed my way through college. 4 months before I graduated college, and I was in a really dark place because I didn't have a job offer. I couldn't lawfully work because of my immigration status. A terrible earthquake ravaged Haiti in January of 2010. I don't know if you remember that from the news.
I do.
So in response to that earthquake, the Obama administration gave Haitians who were here in the US without documentation, TPS, temporary protected status. And that's how my family and we first got our legal status. And it did two key things. It allowed us to work lawfully and be protected from deportation. That experience, the idea that a tragedy off of our shores was used as a lifeline to help those of us who are struggling here and allow us to enter the economy more fully and help relatives and friends who are reeling from the aftermath in Haiti, it transformed my life. It taught me that government can be a force for good when you have people in position of power who want to be of service and who want to do good. And it planted that seed that at some point in my life, if I am so privileged, I too would like the opportunity to be able to create policies and laws that serve as a way to help people instead of erecting barriers in their ways. And to sort of come full circle when Trump got reelected the second time, because of my experience as an undocumented person and now as an attorney who specializes in trust and estate, I sort of saw I saw the writing on the wall. I knew that there weren't tens of millions of illegals, so to speak, who were rapists and criminals roaming our streets and making America terrible. I knew that was fabricated, and I knew it would start affecting legal immigrants, naturalized citizens like myself, and ultimately hurt the economy and hurt the country I've come to love. And for me, it was just easier to step up and fight back versus just shrinking myself and accepting that there's nothing I can do.
Sorry for that noise. Have you ever done a TikTok live before?
No, this is my very first TikTok live.
So you're going to hear something that sounds like fireworks going off. It's just the live goals being met. People can send gifts to the account. And when you hit 50%, it makes a noise. And then when you hit 100%, it makes another noise. You are not allowed to receive gifts on your account. I just tried to send you one and it said, no, she can't receive one because it's a political account. So otherwise, we would be sending you lots of gifts. But, well, thank you for that introduction. I worked briefly, very briefly in law school on an immigration clinic. And I represented 2 asylum seekers. And back then, this was in 2003.
Okay.
The system was so heavily congested. And we had, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 immigration judges serving the entire country. And there was a long wait, years and years and years, and it hasn't gotten any better. And now it seems like it's been broken beyond repair. It seems irreparable. But I think we can get it turned around in the next congressional class. Do you think so?
If not the next congressional class, certainly under another administration. Immigration is strictly, especially immigration enforcement, it's under the purview of the executive branch. So there's very little the legislative branch could do other than pass laws. And right now we just don't have the numbers for meaningful immigration reform.
Yeah, I know that every time in the last, I would say 20 years, we've gotten close to passing some meaningful legislation, that something political has happened and the Republicans have said, no, we're not going to do it. They would have, under Obama, they were fine. Under Biden, they were fine. And then something big politically happens and they're like, no, you know what? No, never mind. We're backing off of it. And it usually has to do with offering citizenship to DACA recipients or undocumented immigrants. That's always the linchpin. People seem to be against offering citizenship to people already present in the U.S. How do you feel about, what do you think should be the pathway to citizenship for undocumented workers, children, DACA recipients?
I think all immigrants who are here, who've been contributing to our economy, and some of them have been here for decades, there is quite literally no path to legalization. And I am strongly in favor of offering a path to legalization that leads to citizenship. Because right now, DACA doesn't, TPS doesn't, and a lot of these temporary statuses that a president can come up with, and that's what I got as a TPS recipient back in 2010, there was no path to citizenship. The only way I managed to become a U.S. citizen was by marrying my husband, who fortunately is an American citizen. If he was another fellow TPS holder, we'd still both be subject to TPS, which now the Supreme Court will hear the argument about next month. And if they terminate it, 350,000 Haitian nationals will become undocumented overnight.
Yeah, that's I can't even imagine. I can't imagine what that would do to our economy, right? Because a lot of these,
billions.
billions of dollars of tax revenue gone.
Right.
I tell people that it could collapse our economy, and they don't believe me. But a lot of undocumented and documented immigrants, they work in a lot of the service positions, sanitation, construction, service industry. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of jobs. That's millions of jobs. They wouldn't suddenly be filled by American citizens. They would just go empty, right? So we can't just, I don't know, we can't just cut the legs out from under our own economy.
And like all other things, it will be communities of color that are disproportionately affected, because those are the communities that we tend to live in as Haitians here in the U.S. So those are people whose rents now will go unpaid, children whose parents won't be able to work anymore, families in Haiti that rely on relatives here to support them who won't be getting their remittances. It will be a lot of our senior citizens who are cared for by a lot of Haitian American women, like my family members, who won't be able to receive that care. And those people they'll be exploited, targeted by ICE. And it's not just illegal, it's really deeply immoral. In my case, this is my 26th year in this country. I've been here since I was 12. There are Haitians who got TPS by the time they got it. They had been here longer than I have been. They've raised children here, created a life and a family for themselves. So for me, I've seen our broken immigration system and I've lived it, but I see it in so many other ways that people struggle with these failed systems. And like me, those folks have internalized internalize their failure as a personal sense of shame. For a long time, I thought, my parents didn't plan well enough and I failed to do something. I thought it was my fault. And it quite literally took the Obama administration intervening to give TPS for me to realize that there was this bigger system at play and it wasn't just me not trying hard enough or not working hard enough.
And to your credit, you're doing all of the things people imagine immigrants want to do when they come to the United States, right? You want to go to school, go to college, go to law school, become a doctor, become a lawyer. There's this image of immigrants of any type coming into the US and, oh, they just want to get on welfare. They just want to use our Medicaid. They're told all of these lies about the US and none of this is true. This isn't the land of milk and honey. And it's not, but people aren't coming here just for the sake of being here, right? People are fleeing awful, terrible circumstances most of the time, and they're trying to survive. That's the first thing on their mind when they get to the US. When they get to the US, is how do I survive being here?
Absolutely. I mean, my mother and father came here because they felt that their two children wouldn't have a bright future in Haiti. And they came with just some clothes, very, very little money. We shared a bedroom with 8 people when we first got here. My mother's first paycheck was $76. I helped her retire 8 years ago, and my parents live with me now. And she was earning about $11 an hour, working in a meatpacking plant in New York, where it's quite expensive to live. All of her income went to just rent and food. So I say I'm my parents' 401k because they couldn't put money aside for retirement. They could only meet their day-to-day goals, which now a lot of people are struggling to even do that with the poverty wages that they're earning. My mom, a couple of years ago, she was telling me at the meatpacking plant where she used to work, tears would run down her face because her gloved hands would burn from the cold. It was just really, really challenging work, but she did it for the same reason so many American parents sacrifice and parents all over the world sacrifice. The idea that if you work really, really hard, you should be able to offer a good life to your children, and your children's future should be somewhat brighter and better than yours. And in my family, we've been fortunate that I did pursue, and I not only get my undergraduate degree, I became a lawyer. I've helped my parents retire. My children now get to wake up every day with my mom and dad in the home, and they have a close relationship with them. It's such a blessing for my family. But for so many other families, it's not possible. The paths that I've used to get to where I am, to build this middle-class life for myself, those opportunities are disappearing for people, particularly people who look like us. And the investments that we used to make in our communities and our people, it's being cut down by this administration. We're not funding our schools. I mean, that's been decades going, but even more now, we're dismantling the Department of Education. We're taking investments out of our communities, making it harder and harder for hardworking folks, immigrant and Americans alike, to achieve their dreams and aspirations.
And so you're one of the few candidates we've had on our show. We've had over 150, I think, by now, who has a direct nexus to the immigrant community, to an immigrant community, rather. Do you find yourself having to combat a lot of disinformation and misinformation that tends to circulate among the immigrant communities about Democrats and the government and political candidates? Do you find yourself having to do that? Or do you just say that's just the way it is and don't bother?
Interestingly, not with other immigrants. I think, particularly within the Haitian community, I think the immigrant community very much knows that under Obama, we got TPS. Under Biden, there was the humanitarian parole program. So they've seen immigration policies that have been more generous and more humane towards Haitians. What I find is some apathy from, I'd say, people who are a bit more removed, a generation or two, who say things like, well, I'm not sure who I'm going to vote for, or what's the point of voting, because they have their citizenship, they don't feel that same pressure and that same, they didn't struggle in Haiti. They don't quite understand the big disparity between being a country where there is the rule of law and a country where there really isn't. So I find myself doing a lot more of that with, frankly, first generation Americans who are my peers or a bit younger than I am. Within the Haitian community, people are following very closely. I mean, when I go and I'm talking about just TPS, what's happening, folks are following very closely. And now there are some very just savvy Haitian reporters, if you will, who do all of that reporting in Creole about what's happening, not just with respect to immigration, but all of the things like the birthright citizenship, oral arguments today at the Supreme Court, and a lot of the other federal issues. They're covering them, and I hear my dad listening to it all the time in very thoughtful ways.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. I am glad to hear that. I really am. I spend my time talking to Democrats and progressives all day, and we don't really get to hear from people with that close connection to immigrant groups what's going on, how they feel about these things. You know, we hear a lot about, well, the Cubans, they're dancing in the street because Trump freed Cuba and Trump freed Venezuela. They're dancing in the street. And I'm like, Art, is that the truth though? Or is that something we're just being sold because they want us to support whatever crazy thing he's done today?
It's so immigrant communities are very different, and it's almost, our immigration policies treat people differently based on where they come from and how they get into the country. And because of that, it tends to splinter the immigrant community. For a very long time, if you're a Cuban and you get here, you have a direct path to your green card and ultimately citizenship. So the idea that you come here, you're undocumented, you struggle, that just hasn't been the Cuban experience because of their carve out under our immigration laws. And if you're someone like my family, we came here via plane. When I married my husband, he was able to petition for me to get my green card, and ultimately I became a citizen. If I had crossed the border by foot and was not inspected and I entered here unlawfully, I would not be able to become a citizen despite marrying an American. And that's why we have so many people who've been here far longer than I have been, who have American adult children who still are undocumented, because if they cross the border, they call it entry without inspection, EWIS, you don't have a path to legalization at all unless you leave the country. And sometimes for a really long period of time that exceeds someone's life expectancy, you just don't have a path to get legal status in this country.
Wow. That breaks my heart, especially for people who have been here for 30 years. I've seen videos of people going, well, you know what? I'm just going to self-deport. I'm just going to go home, but I have to leave behind my children and my grandchildren and the life I've always known and go back home. Sometimes they haven't been back home in some years, or they don't speak the language of the place that they're going back to because they've been in the US for so long, or they came here when they were babies. And it's unfair. Alice is one of our moderators, and she's from, I'm going to get this wrong. Venezuela. And she's Venezuelan and Argentinian, I think. Alice, please correct me. You know I can't remember things, Alice. So, okay, you're running to serve District 1, and this district includes both the wealth of West Hartford and the economic struggles of Hartford. What's one policy you've supported or would support that tangibly narrows that gap within the next 2 years?
Gosh, one key policy for me is increasing the federal minimum wage. And I want it increased to $25 an hour and tie it to inflation. The idea that we have working people who have to rely on SNAP benefits, or that food banks, their primary people they serve are ALICE households. ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. Those are primarily households led by single moms who earn too much to get SNAP benefits, but not enough to put food on the table, so they have to rely on food banks. People who are working full-time, working multiple jobs, should earn enough to be able to pay for their living expenses, rent, food, and other basic necessities. Because what we have otherwise are workers subsidizing corporate profits. And it's not the small business, the small mom and pop. It's larger corporations like the Walmarts of the world and some of the larger fast food chains that are not paying people enough and they can't sustain themselves. So if we pay working people a living wage, that's what a lot of data shows is a living wage, $25 an hour, which averages out to about $50,000 a year. People can pay for their basic necessities and have some dignity and want to work more and feel like if they work really hard, they can get ahead. And I want to tie it to inflation because we know inflation is inevitable. Just like Social Security benefits get adjusted every year for cost of living, just like the estate tax exemption, which is the amount of wealth you can leave to your beneficiaries when you die, that gets adjusted for inflation every year. Most of us live off of our earnings, and a minimum wage should be tied to inflation.
So what's the minimum wage in Connecticut?
The federal minimum wage is $7.25. Here in Connecticut, it's almost $17. So it's much higher here in Connecticut.
Wow, that is
But I can
higher
tell
than a
you,
lot of states in the union.
it is higher than a lot of state, and it's better
Yeah,
than 725, far better, but it is still not enough. I
yeah.
have family members who work full time, work overtime, and they're living paycheck to paycheck.
And in the state of Ohio, you would need at least $21 an hour to afford an apartment. And so, yeah, I think ours is like $10 and something cents. And you obviously would have to work 2 or 3 jobs or have a second income somewhere in your household in order to just have an apartment. Never mind all
Right,
of the other expenses like transportation and food.
right.
And the cost of goods here have increased 9% while incomes are not rising. What's the situation like in District 1? Are you seeing costs going up and people complaining about not being able to stretch their dollar any farther?
Absolutely. The issue of affordability is everywhere in the United States. Even with our higher minimum wage here in Connecticut, we still have a huge wealth gap and income gap. And there's still a lot of people who are living well below the poverty line. And I mean, in my family, my parents earned so little. At one point, there was like 25 of us living in a 3-bedroom house that was like 1,500 square feet because, I mean, we were all related in some way, shape, or form. But when you can't afford your own apartment, your own house, you just end up with a lot of people under one roof. And I remember Sunday mornings when we're getting ready to go to church, we would inevitably run out of hot water because with just a single water heater, it just wasn't going to warm enough water for 25 people to shower and get ready and get to church within like a narrow 2-hour time frame.
Wow. So you really, I mean, I love that you work with people, but you also come from circumstances that a lot of people running for office or who are in office now could never imagine. So that more human experience that you have had probably gives you a bit of an edge over your competitors, you think?
Absolutely. You know, I say what we're really lacking in Congress right now is the experience of what it's like to be held back by these failed systems and these
Right.
failed policies. We have so many of our Congress members who are not only privileged, but they were born into privilege. They are the very people the status quo is designed to benefit and propel forward. So when they're legislating, and it's mostly they're coming from that similar background. There is a perspective that is missing at the table. And we know all too well, if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. Until there's more real representation from a socioeconomic status point of view, it's going to be very difficult to address the economic policies that are shrinking the middle class. My view is the existential threat to democracy right now, it's really not Trump. It's the shrinking middle class because Trump saw that. He was able to identify it, convince people that he only could solve it because he's a billionaire. And then he's been exploiting it and weakening the rule of law. So if we as Democrats, the way we deliver for people and the way we fight Trump is by actually increasing opportunity so people can see democracy is intangible and abstract. The way we live and experience democracy is by, can I put food on my table? on the table? Do I have access to healthcare if I'm sick? If I fall ill for a month, am I going to be homeless? Will my children have a better future than I have? So I think until we as Democrats understand that the only way we play defense is by playing offense, until we get that, we're not going to be winning for the American people. Maybe we'll win elections because Trump is epically screwing up right now, but that's not going to move us beyond the status quo that frankly has been failing us for generations. It's not lost on me that I've had people point out, well, you came here as an immigrant, you made it out. It's like, well, the system needs me as an exception. I am the exception,
Right,
not the
right,
norm. And if
right.
no one makes it out, then the system would not endure and persevere and persist. So being the exception, I feel even more compelled to speak out and say the narrow path that I found to get to where I am, other than having been undocumented, everything else fell in line perfectly, including the timing of when I got TPS. 4 months away from graduation, I was able to then land a full-time job. I was in Manhattan where, not driving, I could still get around, not needing a car and having unexpected expenses. I've never had any bad medical events, so I just never had those surprises. I have a mother who is frankly the most hardworking, kind, wonderful human being on the face of the planet, who her love has always empowered me. It made me feel that I can do anything I want. I've had all of these things to get me to where I am. And with any of those things not there, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Listen, Ruth, my goodness. You are one of the stronger candidates we have had on here in a very long time. I love that response. I really do. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're amazing. You're amazing. I'm going to follow you. See if I
Thank
can
you.
get like you're amazing. I don't even know. I feel like I should just let you talk for the rest of the time and I just sit here. As a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions for Ruth, you're welcome to hit the multi-guest and come up and you can ask her yourself. Let's see. Hartford residents face rising rents while wages lag. What specific federal action would you take to increase affordable housing supply in your district?
The federal government needs to invest in more affordable housing, not just single family, but multifamily homes as well. Because right now there is, after when the subprime mortgage crisis happened in 2008, 2009, I was in college. I was studying corporate finance, and I remember just going to my economics classes, my finance classes, studying why this was happening and what the solutions could be. The reality is our housing market never recovered. The smaller builders who were building, they weren't the ones that got bailed out. They were the big banks that got bailed out. So we've not only been losing supply of housing, we're not adding any new housing at a rate that's keeping up with demand. And until we can close that gap, housing is going to keep skyrocketing. My husband and I were very fortunate. We bought our house 8 years ago. In the 8 years that we've owned this house in Hartford, it's appreciated 50%. 50. Wonderful that we own it. But if we were
Wow.
trying to buy now with interest rates where they are now, we would easily be paying double the mortgage between the appreciated value and the higher interest rate. So government needs to there are problems that the private sector simply is not designed to resolve because it's never going to be profitable. And increasing housing supply, making housing more affordable, in investing in the infrastructure so that we can add more housing to the market, that is a role for government, including allowing more first-time home buyers to be able to buy a home. That is the primary way that Americans build wealth. And that's one of the things that has contributed to the wealth gap in this country and the racial wealth gap as well. That for generations, certain people were able to buy a home and have those values appreciate. Others had no access to buying a home, or they were redlined into areas where the value of their homes would not appreciate the same way. We need the same intentionality in policies that will redress those wrongs that have been plaguing us for generations.
And I'm glad that you pointed out what the federal government can do. Sometimes we have people on our program who don't really understand what the role of Congress is in making and ameliorating things like the housing crisis and narrowing the wealth gap. And so I'm glad you pointed out exactly what the federal government can do. There are three levers, right? The federal lever, the state lever, and the local lever. How do you see yourself as working with state and local officials to bring more jobs to Hartford?
Hartford is, I moved to Connecticut as a young adult. It's such a wonderful state, and Hartford is such a vibrant city. I've now lived in Hartford longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life. We have so many schools around. We have a wonderful population. We're, centrally located between Boston and New York. If we invest more in housing, because we are more affordable compared to Boston and compared to New York,
Right.
we've already have people moving more into Connecticut. If we can invest more in housing, the work will follow because people are here. Some people are working remotely, working hybrid. There is so much industry already here. We just have to support them and give them a population of people who can come here and work and stay here. We do struggle with respect to how we fund education. I mean, throughout the country, but particularly in Connecticut, being one of the wealthier states in the country. I serve on the Board of Education for Hartford. Our schools struggle. We don't get enough funding to meet every child where that child is. And that is a huge disparity. That's one of the reasons that affect the property value between Hartford and neighboring West Hartford. I live close to the border of West Hartford. The one street that's between Hartford and West Hartford, on the Hartford side, the house is about half the property taxes than the house on the West Hartford side. And the property taxes could easily double because
Right.
of the school district and the way funding works. So for me, it goes back to investing in the services that people need. If we have great schools everywhere, those communities, those towns like Hartford, where it's mostly people of color, predominantly who live in Hartford, we would see our city thrive and grow more and catch up with our suburban counterparts.
Wow. I like that. I like that response. So let's talk about the federal budget because Congress has the power of the purse, allegedly.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like they know that these days.
No, they are. It seems like they're in one of those relationships where you just give the purse to the other person and hope that they don't rob you. What's one federal program you would cut and one you would expand to better serve working families in your district?
I would definitely eliminate ICE's entire budget.
Okay.
And I think a lot of what DHS does can be brought into other departments and agencies.
The way it was before.
The way it was before, I think people forget that it's a 23-year-old agency. It's not like we didn't do Homeland Security and Border Patrol and immigration enforcement before DHS. So that's money that can pay for healthcare, can pay for funding our schools, can pay for investing in housing. The way we're doing immigration enforcement right now, it's not only cruel, it's counter to our economic productivity. And frankly, it's detrimental to the long-term financial health of the United States. We're scaring away people who want to come here and work really hard. If we keep at the space, I think we'll have a bigger brain drain, especially with scientists, because if we're not funding research, if we're not doing all the cutting edge things that we've been doing that allows us to win more Nobel Prizes and be more innovative, these people are going to go to other countries. It's already starting to happen. So if we can change our immigration policies, slash that funding for DHS and invest more in the people, we would be a lot better off and safer as well.
Well, Ruth, I have to correct you. We did recently win the Nobel Peace Prize. Did you forget about that, Ruth?
Yeah,
I'm like, let me just throw a little joke in there.
Yeah, isn't it sad? Isn't it sad?
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
It's pathetic. It gets to a point where it's like, should I feel sorry for this person? Because it's really, really bad. It's bad. I don't know. So you work in trusts and estates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trust, wills, and estates.
Yes.
I myself am a disability lawyer, so I deal with retirement and disability and all of that. We have an aging population in the U.S., a rapidly growing population of people, especially in your district. Do you support raising, lowering, or eliminating the retirement age, and why?
So the retirement age with respect to when you can collect Social Security, I presume is
Right.
what you mean.
Yeah.
So right now, I think for most people who are about to retire, it's 66 and a half and soon to be 67.
Yeah.
I don't support raising that at the moment. I do what I doing trust and estate. I work mostly with an older population. I can tell you for middle class seniors, the biggest risk to them losing everything they've worked for and saved and accumulated during their working lives is long-term care. And that informs why
Correct.
I want Medicare to cover long-term care. I can't tell you how many times I had clients who'd come to my office, and as their health began to decline, they realized, gosh, I won't be able to just do all of these activities that I've performed as an adult. I need some assistance around my home. And that cost is going to increase because their health is continuing to decline. They realize they will spend everything down. And I'm talking people who are retired teachers, retired nurses. They own their home. They have modest retirement savings. They weren't billionaires and super millionaires, but they were comfortably middle class. And long-term care have forced some of my clients to lose their homes and go into a nursing home because you can only have $1,600 under federal law, Medicaid law, Title 19, before Medicaid steps in and pays for your long-term care. So long-term care is a huge risk that I think a lot of people don't realize. And if you make it to age 65, 70% of people who are 65 or older will need some type of long-term care. So investing in long-term care and caring for our seniors and paying the people who are providing that care to our seniors a living wage are critical. And a lot of the people doing that work, for the most part, they are women of color.
Yeah.
Earning poverty wages, having to rely on, in Connecticut, on Husky for their health insurance, which is the state health insurance program, on SNAP benefits or food banks to provide their basic necessities.
Now, has Connecticut expanded Medicaid?
So Connecticut has opted to offer the home care option. Some states don't do that. So you can have Medicaid pay for your care, even if you're at home receiving care. But not every state has opted into that because states get to choose in some ways how they
Right.
implement the program. And we have
Okay.
a lot of folks who are disabled as well. They're forced. We have this institutionalization bias in our system where if you're trying to stay home to get the care, it is a lot harder than if you just give up your home and you go into a group home or you go into a nursing home or some type of other institutional setting. And that is very detrimental to a lot of people who are forced to leave their communities, not interact with their friends and family members as much, and they face more isolation and a lot of times poorer health outcomes.
That is correct. And we do have a question from the audience, Buttermel, aka Melanie. Hey, Miss Melanie, how you
Sorry,
doing?
y'all caught me when I just took a bite of my almond Snickers. Okay.
I love you,
So,
Mel.
so Ms.
Go
Ruth, I'm
ahead.
not sure if you're like, we talk to people on TikTok all the time. I actually just went into another live to get someone who is from Connecticut to come on over here and listen to you. I'm like, you need to hear this woman. I believe she is in District 1. So I went to grab, tell her, hey, come over to OVC, listen to who we got on the panel right now. And they're having a conversation about this thing called FBA. Are you aware of what FBA is?
No, I'm not sure that's ringing a bell for me.
Okay. So there's this, I don't even want to call it a movement, but there's this idea going around, which FBA stands for Foundational Black American. And it is causing a rift between someone like myself and yourself, someone who came from Haiti, but still walks around the United States as a Black woman, in my opinion. I mean, like, you would not be able to tell whether I'm from Haiti or you're from Haiti in this moment. But yet somehow they are causing this divide, saying that basically I am more worthy to be here than you. Additionally, I think, or more so, that the argument is about reparations. So I'm curious as where you stand on reparations in America, and if you agree that everyone isn't entitled to it, or is this a thing that I also believe that the whole diaspora, was affected by the slave trade.
I was going to say Haiti too. Haiti had slavery,
Absolutely.
and they dealt with that. They dealt with having to pay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Having to pay France for earning our freedom, and we were the first free black country in the world, and a lot of Haitians helped the United States fight and were involved. That's why we have such a huge Creole culture down in Louisiana. So definitely, Haitians have contributed to the American story in a lot of ways. But with respect to the question about reparations, yes, I do believe that reparations is how the government should make up for the wrongs of history and attempt to find some equity, because it is not very hard to trace back the wealth gap to the very racist and and policies that we have, and segregation and redlining that were very much the law. And we have not have law that have tried to address that. Do I have the answers in terms of what are the best ways to ensure that we have reparations and it has the intended impact and consequences that we want? I don't have all of the answers, but I know that Congress has not even wanted to authorize the ability to do a lot of research in that. See, what are the best ways? So, we have the power of the purse. How do we invest to try to close that gap and redress some of the wrongs of history? That's something we ought to do. And, I've read some work by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who speaks very eloquently about reparations and what we ought to be doing. And I think that is something to do. And it's not lost on me that, if you go to court and you're trying to prove discrimination and racial bias, you can't use statistics and larger picture numbers to do that. It's one of the few instances where you can't show that there is discrimination when you look at the statistics and you look at how one group has disproportionately been harmed. Yet in other aspects of the law, if you go to the court and you're looking at data and statistics to prove a case, they accept it. So even how within our justice system, there's precedence to prevent us to look at looking at aggregate numbers to show that the effect and ramifications of segregation and racism, all of those are things that we need to be looking at and wanting to address.
Absolutely. So I thank you. I mean, I'm with Ayana. You are our kind of girl. We will do 1,000 town halls with someone like you all day long. So we appreciate you being here. I am also part of our vote count. So I just wanted to pick your brain on what you thought about that.
I thank you for asking that question, Buttermel, because that is something that we hear a lot. We hear a lot about who's entitled and who isn't, and who's an American and who isn't, and who's black and who isn't, and it's just a lot of silliness.
She looked like she could be my sister. I'm just saying. Like,
yeah,
what are you saying, people?
It's crazy that people feel like they own a color, they own a race, they own a community, they own this, they own that. That's one of the reasons why I love the United States, because you can be whoever you are and still feel like you're part of something bigger, right? Because we're all something different. All of us. Right. Very few of us are just one thing, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
Alice is asking, like, what does reparations look like to you? Like, do you think it should be money, or does it really should be in a form of
opportunity,
land, or opportunities, or education, or all of the above?
I mean, it's a loaded question for me as a trust and estate attorney, so there's a lot going in my mind. I think if it's just money outright, it may not have the full impact. And I'm thinking of it in terms of like, I've seen people inherit a nice large sum of money and it just gets squandered very quickly, or people take advantage and are exploited. So I want it to be something that allows you to not just get the opportunity or get that resource, but allow you to grow and know how to manage it and use it to serve you however you see that, however it, best for you. I do think it also needs to include more educational opportunity in the communities that have, the worst school funding, less opportunity. They tend to be communities of color. that is, and it's just an effect of, frankly, redlining and segregation. We still see that. So there's many ways that it should happen. I don't have all of the answers though, but I do think it is very worthy of our time and attention.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me up. Y'all continue with that conversation.
All righty. Thank you, Buttermel. Okay, so Hartford has persistent health disparities by race and income. What measurable outcome would you aim to change in 4 years? So that would be about 2 terms.
The one thing that's very concerning for me is the Black mother mortality rate with respect to maternity. Black women who give birth die at a much higher rate than their white or Hispanic counterparts. And I think that has a lot to do. There is some research that's starting to show it has to do with a lot of the just microaggressions that you experience and the overall stress that your body carries when you're walking around as a Black woman. So there is investments to be made in women's health, particularly in women of color, and the stress that we deal with that you probably don't deal with if you're not a person of color. And then also just more investment overall in healthcare. Not having access to healthcare leads to poor health outcomes. It is not surprising that people with lower income tend to have more illnesses, lower life expectancies, more stress, less likely to have an intact family. Financial stress in many ways is the, in my view, particularly given the lens I'm coming from as a trust and estate attorney, it is one of the root issues for all of those things. Because if you don't have the financial ability to live in a community where it's not a food desert, you don't have the ability to take some time off, take a sick day because you're sick, get a vacation or just some quality time, that takes a toll on your health.
I agree. It absolutely does. I mean, my job is high stress. I know your job is high stress. And if you're high stress every single day, how long can you go on like that? Not very long. And that's something to think about. That's absolutely something to think about. And something that the federal government under a particular president was going to address. And then 2024 happened and suddenly it's no longer a crisis anymore for Black women. Black women are being laid off. Medicaid is taking away some of our insurance opportunities, the ACA subsidies expiring. So it seems like there's less investment being made in even studying the healthcare concerns of people in the Black community, like the divestment from, I believe it's sickle cell research. Mm-hmm. There were some projects that were divested from by the Trump administration because they target their DEIA targets. And so what do you anticipate as being the effects of that? Do you think you're going to see more people who need more procedures, more healthcare, more, we're obviously going to need more hospitals, more clinics. Is this something that you see in your district that there's a need for that?
There absolutely is. And also, I think the consolidation that's happening in the healthcare space with a lot of private equity buying up hospitals and consolidating.
Right.
It's having a really detrimental impact on outcomes because doctors have less time to spend with patients. It's becoming so robotic in a way and less human interaction. And all is about how do you make more profit? Yeah, I've seen it in just a few years. You know, my oldest is 9, and you just sort of see how that happens, and just the hospitals that are consolidating around us. All of that is really concerning, and it goes back to, from my, as a trust and estate attorney at this point in my career, I have worked with the 80-year-old who's had to get impoverished down to $1,600 to be able to get on Medicaid, to people who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I see just the disparity in terms of the day-to-day. The idea that we have laws that allow people to plan under our trust laws. You can plan for, under Connecticut law, 800 years into the future because you have so much more than you ever will need in your lifetime, your children's lifetime, your grandchildren's lifetime. And then there are people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And people who, we had a friend who passed away. Her children didn't have money to bury her.
Yeah.
And she's someone who used to help us when we first got here. She'd give me hand-me-down clothes. She was far better off than we ever were when we first got in this country. And she passed away 26 years later, and her children, who are young adults, didn't have money to bury her. There's so much that we have to do to close that gap. And my view is, we don't get to close the gap between our laws and our values until you have people in those positions of power who are very intentional about doing that. We have the wealth. We have the resources. We're the wealthiest country that has ever existed in the history of the world. And with all of the technological advances that we have, we actually can ensure everyone is fed. We can ensure everyone has access to healthcare. We can ensure everyone is housed. We can ensure everyone has their basic necessities. We're simply not prioritizing the welfare and well-being of everyone. We place this hierarchy and we're choosing to ignore people. And I really do, at my very core, I believe two things. People who are used to being on the menu, we need to have a seat at the table. It is not enough to say you're fighting for us. We need to be at the table because we can fight for ourselves. And we're going to fight for ourselves far better than anyone can do for us. And secondly, we need opportunity. You have to give opportunity to everyone so that we can work and achieve our dreams and aspirations.
And let me just say that a republic that doesn't invest in the health of its citizens is not going to last long, right? We're only 250 years old. Do we expect to be 250 years older in 250 years if we don't have any people?
Right.
I don't know. Are we going to last another 100 years if we don't have any people? I don't know. I'm watching people pass away from preventable illnesses that can be controlled with just taking one little medication. And that shouldn't be happening. But they don't have the money to afford the medicine. They can't visit a primary care doctor every month for follow-ups.
Right.
They use the hospital as their primary care, and that's expensive, and the government just turns its head. I mean, it's sad. It's very sad. I don't know how we can go on like we've been going on. We're not progressing, right? We're not progressing. We're kind of regressing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of the policies that we've had have been taking us back decades. And the laws that we do manage to pass prioritize people who have a lot more already to begin with. One example I like to use, December 31st of last year, there were going to be two big tax credits, two tax things that would expire. One was the healthcare tax subsidy was going to expire, and it did, and it has yet to be extended. Who knows what's going to happen with it? The other thing that was going to expire was the estate tax exemption. And it was going to be cut down to half in terms of how much wealth you can leave to your family members or your heirs when you pass away. And in that one big, beautiful bill, that estate tax exemption was permanently extended. It's $15 million adjusted for inflation every year thereafter that you can leave to your heirs before you pay anything in taxes. Yet healthcare that a lot of us need, right? We need healthcare. That tax credit has yet to be extended. And there are people who will argue and say, well, isn't it showing that it's a broken system? Because why do you need tax credit to be able to afford it? And I really appreciate that President Obama recently came out and said, look, the Affordable Care Act was supposed to be a start. It was never fully intended to be a complete fix to the system.
Exactly.
Acknowledging that sometimes we make incremental steps. And now until the system is overhauled and repaired and we have universal health care, if tax credits are what people need to be able to afford their healthcare premiums, then that's what we need to do until we can have that longer term fix that makes healthcare more available and accessible.
Listen, when I bought my house, I needed a tax credit to be able to afford to buy my house. This was in 2008. And the Bush administration was giving out $10,000 tax credits for first-time home buyers. That's how I bought my house. People need tax credits, when they buy a new car, when they get, Obama was giving out energy efficient appliance tax credits. Tax credits work. They work. They stimulate the economy. They get people, to do things, to buy things, to make changes. They work. They help. There's nothing wrong with them. What's wrong is when you tell people that the only way they are going to get health insurance is if they get a job. Not just
Right.
any job. It has to be a job that
Right.
has health insurance because not
Right.
every job provides for health
Right.
insurance. So, speaking of insurance, Hartford is known as the insurance capital.
It is.
Should federal policy do more to regulate or partner with that industry?
Gosh, so my that's what actually brought us to Hartford. My husband's an actuary and he took a job at an insurance company in Hartford and we lended here. Um, so there's just so many different types of insurance. With
Right.
respect to healthcare and health insurance, I do think I do want to see Medicare for all or some type of single payer system, but I think there is a way to do it to not completely dismantle and create a disaster here, particularly in Hartford or in Connecticut, where we are an insurance capital and we have so many people employed by insurance companies. That's in the healthcare space. And there are ways to do that thoughtfully to ensure that those companies, their workers, that they are provided for during that transition period when we try to move away from private insurers or as private insurers slowly lose their share because government, they're not going to be able to compete with the government, right? If we have Medicare for all, there's just no way private health insurance in the long run will be able to compete. Long-term care insurance, I mean, right now that industry, it's just the people who need it. They already aged out or can't afford to buy long-term care insurance. I ultimately think we shouldn't have long-term care insurance because long-term care should be covered under Medicare. So if you're sick, if you need assistance with what they call the activities of daily living, bathing, toileting, the things that older people need care with or someone who's disabled needs assistance with, that should be part of your medical coverage. It shouldn't be something extra that you have to be poor to receive assistance with or impoverish yourself to receive assistance with. And then in other types of insurance, so casualty and home insurance, I think with respect to climate change, I think government will need to be very strategic about how we do that because there are already some homeowners in certain areas in the country that are not able to pay for insurance for their homes, whether it's for flood or fire or other types of natural disasters, because it's becoming very unprofitable for companies to insure people in those spaces. So I think we do need to be very strategic in terms of how we think about. I don't know that government taking over entirely in some of those spaces is the solution, but having some really strategic partnerships. And we've done it in other spaces, and we could look into doing that in the insurance sector.
Well, my issue is that the weather is becoming wildly unpredictable, right? I'm in Northeast Ohio and we're having tornadoes now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 10 years ago, we did not have any tornadoes here. And we have 3, 4, 5 a year just in this area alone. So now you're having damage to your home from tornadoes. You didn't have to consider that before.
Right.
We're having heavier rainfall. So there's flooding. There's flooding all the time. So if you have to maybe take over the industry because things are becoming unpredictable and insurance companies don't want to cover these things anymore. Maybe that's what you have to do. I don't know how insurance works. I just pay the premium.
Yeah, don't ever ask my husband that question. He'll start, going on and on and on. Yeah, I'll give you an example. I mean, in our neighborhood, and, Hartford is a very old city. Like my house, I think was built in 1900, so it's an older house, very sturdily built, but a lot of people were having more flooding because of the heavier rainfall, et cetera, et cetera. And we had a program just at the state level that came and started doing a lot of work to essentially shore up people's basements to prevent flooding. We had, they came in at no cost to us. They installed a sump pump and did all this extra work. And we had minor flooding a couple of times before that, and we just haven't had that. So there's ways to try to make sure that we are being we sort of know what to expect and we're seeing the trend. How do we make sure that our homes are more safe and more prepared for what's to come? And how do we make sure that building codes are going to address fire risk or flooding risk, whatever those risks are in the neighborhoods where they are? And how do we ensure that it's still being done in a way that's not preventing people from being able to live in the communities where they are or afford housing altogether?
Yeah, that's a lot. Ay, ay, ay. So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire
All
questions.
right, I've been looking forward to this.
Have you? Okay, these are yes or no. Are corporate profits driving inflation? Yes or no?
Yes.
Raise taxes on people making over $400,000?
Yes.
Break up large corporations more aggressively?
Yes.
Should government guarantee income?
That is fascinating. I think I have read the entire bill because there's a bill right now. I think it was introduced by Congresswoman Ayana Presley. I might be mistaken on who introduced it, but it's essentially assuring a guaranteed job for everyone
Yes.
at a
Yes.
specific wage that's a living
Yep.
wage.
Yep.
And I read it and it's very interesting. It's very fascinating. I'm still mulling it over. I definitely support it for people who are disabled and unable to work and older people, like Social Security benefits, both disabled benefits and retirement benefits. I am still thinking about whether guaranteed income for everyone, regardless of ability to work or not, is the way to go. Frankly, it's still something that I'm pondering. I'm thinking about how do you make sure that hard work is rewarded, and it's something I'm grappling with currently, to be totally honest with you.
Well, you know what? Starbucks gift card wouldn't hurt. That was a joke. I'm sorry.
No, I hear you.
Sorry. uh, sh- should we cap rent increases nationally? Yes or no?
Sorry, say that, I didn't quite hear.
Should we cap rent increases nationally? Yes or no?
Nationally is tough because different places see different demands and needs. But I guess the short answer would be yes.
Okay. Should we ban hedge funds from buying single family homes?
Yes.
Should there be more federal control over zoning if towns block housing?
That's a double-edged sword. Zoning laws are so uniquely American, and that's a hard one to say yes or no to, because once it's a federal level, I mean, you're entering like eminent domain phase, right? It could be abused.
You can abstain.
Yeah, but this one, I mean, frankly, I'm inclined to probably say no, because we have seen, right? If it depends who's president and who's at the
Right.
federal level.
It does.
And
It
that's
does.
the scary
Yeah.
part. Once you
Yeah.
federalize it, there's also bigger risk for abuse.
Yeah.
So I guess in short, I would go with a no on this one.
Okay. That's fair. Should we cap prescription medicine prices across the board? Yes or no?
Yes.
Should private insurance still exist in 10 years? Yes or no?
In my ideal world, no, but it would be done in a very thoughtful way to make sure that the people who work for those companies, like in my hometown for the Aetnas and the United Healthcares, that those workers get training to transition to something else and they get generous severance compensation for the time that they are transitioning.
Okay. Should we ban members of Congress from trading stocks? Yes or no?
Yes.
Term limits for Congress?
Yes, absolutely. I've personally committed to only serving up to 5 terms in Congress for very, very good reasons. And yes, we need term limits.
Which one of these is true? Your party prioritizes power over people, or your party prioritizes people over power?
I want the latter to be true, but I'm a Democrat challenging another Democrat because I think sometimes we don't do that very well.
That's dang it, that is true. That's why some Democrats choose to run independent, because the party is not supporting the people like it's supposed to. Let's see. Would you prioritize Hartford over wealthier suburbs? Yes or no?
Prioritize them. I mean, I would be representing 27 towns, which includes Hartford. I would prioritize every town that I represent the same way,
That's
knowing that
right.
different towns have different needs. I have 3 children. They each need something slightly different from me, right? They all need love and nurturing, but the way I interact with them is different. What they need from me at any given time is different. And I would have that same lens in terms of how I serve the 27 towns in my district.
Okay. And in one word, Congress, functional or broken?
Broken.
Okay. And that has been the rapid fire. See, that wasn't so bad, was it?
No, that was good.
No.
I liked it.
Okay. Federal dollars flow into your district. How do you ensure they actually reach struggling neighborhoods and not just institutions?
Having it be resident led, giving the residents in the district a say in how those dollars go and get into their communities. Because so many times we have people who think they have the answers and they want to solve the issue. Do you know who knows? The people who know the solutions, they're the people living out the problems. That's one of the reasons I want to go to Congress, because I've lived out some of these failed policies. When you're bringing resources, it's not enough to bring resources and then dictate how it gets spent. It's giving people a voice in how do you want that resources to go and address your needs.
Okay. So public transit between Hartford and surrounding towns is inconsistent. What federal role should exist in fixing that?
More funding from the federal government into our state and municipalities. One of the reasons we chose to be in Hartford is actually because we do have a little bit more public transportation in Hartford. My parents live with us and they don't drive. There is a bus that literally goes in front of our house. I didn't want them to feel isolated. So that sort of removed a lot of suburban towns from our consideration. But the federal government has so much more money than the state does. It can invest in more public transportation, more green public transportation, better frequency of the buses and trains, and connecting more of our clusters, like the cities, and more of our business centers.
Why do you think it is that the federal government struggles? I don't even understand why it struggles so hard to focus on infrastructure in this country. Like it took until Joe Biden became president for us to even broach the subject. Should we fix our aging bridges and roads and transit systems? And the answer, of course, is yes. And then he gets the bill passed into law. And now Trump comes into office and he's like, you know what? I'm going to interfere with this because these are DEIA projects. And he has to be sued so the money can be released. And then the money still doesn't get released. What is the difficulty here? Is it because they don't agree with the projects? Is it because it's too big to think about? Or are people more of, well, the state should be doing that, the local governments should be doing that? What do you think is the problem?
I think it's not something that's immediately gratifying to politicians and rewarding to their
Right,
careers and their
right.
reelections. It's not like people are getting, a tax rebate check in the mail and they see, wow, I got more money. It's not like someone moves into a home. They're like, wow, I have this new home. It's a public good, right? By definition. And when that happens, everyone benefits. But because everyone benefits, it's not a single person necessarily who just benefits hugely. Politicians are less able to capitalize on that for their own advancement. And that's one of the reasons I believe we need term limits. We have a system that really prioritizes short-term solutions versus long-term solutions, because you're seeking that next election, the votes and the attention, and you tend to not invest in the long-term infrastructure needs and the long-term needs of the people.
They want band-aids and bandages, not surgery and,
Right.
physical
Right.
therapy.
Right. And some of those projects take years to complete, right?
They
So by the
do.
time it's completed, you're not in office anymore. It's someone else's turn and you don't get the pat in the back.
That is so true. And I've heard some people say, well, signs were put up that said that, Joe Biden is responsible for the improvements made at this airport. And I think that's great. But I also think the party should be touting that. Hey, your airport has another wing because of Joe Biden. This bridge was repaired because of Joe Biden. It wouldn't hurt to brag about the accomplishments that the Democrat Party is responsible for, but I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of Trump, brr, Trump, brr, Trump bad, Trump, brr, brr. It's like, talk about yourselves. We've accomplished a lot. We have. Talk about the wins we've had against this administration, right?
Right.
We've had wins on the immigration front in court. We've had wins for unions. We've had wins for federal workers. We've had wins. We almost had a win for the student loan repayment program. Why aren't people, why isn't the party talking about the things that people need to hear?
I think we don't have the best messengers sometimes in positions of leadership. And that's one of the ways that just doing these things by seniority affect us. When you have people who are not effective communicators, or maybe who were at some point in time and now no longer are, or don't know how to communicate effectively in the mediums that we have, we're not getting that message across. And that's something we as a party need to reconsider and do differently, because we're not going to start winning just because Donald Trump is making mistakes. I don't want us to just be winning by default. I want us to win with intentionality and win with a purpose and win and then deliver for the American people.
That's right. I love that answer. And I've also wondered why the people who have the seniority in Congress in both houses, they're not reaching out to sort of the younger generation or the people who want to get involved in politics and priming them to run for the seats that might be empty. They're not reaching back. They're pulling up the ladder. Some of the biggest ladder pullers are these career politicians. It's infuriating. What do you think about that?
It's deeply upsetting. I think of, we lost 3 members of Congress last year. One of the reasons the big, beautiful bill got passed, we lost 3 members of Congress. One of those members of Congress was replaced by his own daughter.
Yeah.
The idea that you had an heir apparent and you still couldn't not run for re-election, you still felt married to the seat, it boggles the mind. I do a lot of generational planning in my work. It's like planning 101. You have a business, you have some type of family asset. You're making sure that you're having that continuity, the next generation to pass the baton to. I do think we do have a lot of leaders. We have a lot of people who are ready for those roles in leadership. It's simply that the systemic barriers make it nearly insurmountable to challenge the people currently in power. I see it firsthand in just my run for Congress. It's not that it's, of course, I filled out the federal paperwork and declared, but to get on the ballot here in Connecticut, we've never had an incumbent for Congress face a primary challenge where the challenger gets on the ballot. I won't know if I'm on the ballot until May 11th or possibly until June 9th. Because it is an entire process. I'm not going to bore your audience with the details because it's so Connecticut specific, but it is a very cumbersome process and it's not particularly democratic and it discourages people from getting involved. And then in states where there is more opportunity to get on the ballot, money is a huge obstacle. If you can't fundraise millions now to run for Congress, you had a huge disadvantage. And when you're a working middle class person who did not go, who is educated, but didn't go to school with a bunch of millionaires and billionaires, you don't have a natural net worth of a bunch of wealthy friends who can fund your campaign. I'm seeing that right now in my race. One of the other challengers who entered the race after me was born into privilege, has lots of family wealth and a lot of wealthy friends. He's raised millions. The incumbent has gotten corporate PAC money. He's raised a lot of money as well. And I've raised money, but not nearly as much as they have. I'm not taking any corporate PAC. It does make it that much harder, but I want to run with integrity. If I get to the seat having lost my integrity or having compromised my values, then I'm not going to be able to deliver for the people.
So is it corporate PAC money or is it all PAC money that you think is detrimental to running for office?
I think corporate PAC money, because that's a special interest. There's a PAC now called Higher Heights. It's promoting Black women in elected office. They're not making massive contributions, but their contributions to candidates like, they endorsed Jasmine Crockett, who unfortunately lost her race, and they endorsed other amazing Black women running throughout the country. I think, and they raise money from their supporters. I think that's fine to have those types of groups contributing and supporting candidates that fight for their cause. It's the special interest money, I think, that's really questionable.
Right. That is true. I mean, because they don't have to say where their money is being donated from. They have to disclose who they are. But if they receive $1 million or $5 million from some wealthy donor in California or Oregon, they don't have to say that. They don't have to say who it is.
Yes, and it's also the access. When you're chasing money, our members of Congress, on average, spend half their time doing call time,
Yeah.
essentially calling people asking for money. Imagine how much more they could serve their communities, how much more time they could spend with constituents to know what they're concerned about, and then go and fight to address those issues if they weren't spending so much time just raising money.
Yeah, that's true. They could answer a phone when I call instead of being on the phone asking donors, hey, did you see I voted on that bill that you wanted me to vote on? Can I get your support for the next election? And I
Right.
think it's perfect. I think it's fine that even Democrats be challenged in their primary because somebody said it yesterday. The candidate we had on yesterday said it. We need to make politicians scared again.
Yes.
They feel safe. A lot of
Make
them
them
do.
earn, yes, make them earn that vote. That's what I say about the race that I'm in. And, when you spend so much time too talking to just the donor class, you get a skewed perspective about what people are thinking about and what the issues are for people. You get
Right.
the big, beautiful bill where you extend the estate tax exemption, but you don't extend the healthcare tax credit, right? Because one matters to one group of people, the other matters to another group, and you're only talking to the group that has this one concern.
That's true. So you're out there campaigning. What are the people saying are the most what are they most concerned about this next election cycle? Is it affordability? Is it lack of health care? Is it education? What are people talking about with you?
So I wear a lot of hats. As someone on the campaign trail, most times I'm hearing it's affordability and just how expensive everything is and how much harder it feels. Like even if you're working hard, you just can't get ahead. People who have college degrees and have a professional job are still a paycheck or two away from missing a mortgage payment or missing a rent payment. I'm 38. People my age and younger who've told me they don't think they will have kids because they can't afford it.
Right.
Or, people who have less kids and they would actually want two instead of three children because they just don't think they can afford that third child. So I hear that a lot on the campaign trail. By virtue of being an immigrant, I hear a lot about the concerns about immigration. And it's not just from immigrants, it's just from people with empathy and decency who understands that tearing families apart, detaining people and treating someone as a criminal simply because you're undocumented is wrong. Immigration status is not a criminal matter. It's so being here, being unlawful does not make you a criminal. It is a civil matter, and we're treating it right now as a criminal matter. The idea that you don't have a simple paperwork and you have men with guns knocking down doors, detaining you and arresting you is just wrong, and people are very upset and frustrated with that. In my work as volunteer work on the Board of Education, I hear a lot of the educational concerns that people have. We have a case here in Connecticut called Chef versus O'Neill that was intended to create more opportunity for students and desegregate our schools. So good intentions, but the 30 years later, the actual outcome has been that it's created this bifurcated system where you can opt out of the segregated school system and go into a magnet school that's more integrated and mixed socioeconomic status. But the kids whose parents don't know how to work that system or whose parents just want to keep them in their local neighborhood schools, they see a higher concentration of poverty and need in those schools. So I hear a lot about that. And my view is until we make every public school a great school, choice is really not a real thing. People are not seeking, as I'm raising biracial children, I don't care what my children's classmates look like. I just want them to be in a good school with kids who are supported because then I know they will learn and their classmates will learn. So the idea that we try to integrate schools, but we still have we have segregated communities, all you're doing is busing kids in and out and making them
Right.
feel out of place.
Right. They had Cleveland, the city of Cleveland had busing until I think it was in 2000, the year 2000. And not that it made a difference. It didn't result
Right.
in desegregation. It's still very racially segregated in this city. And it's unfortunate that we're still fighting these same fights. In 2026, we're still fighting these civil rights fights that we thought we cured back
Mm-hmm.
in the 1960s, and we didn't.
Yeah, and to go
So
back to that earlier question about reparations, right? So that is one area where if we're really going to consider reparations in this country, how do we see it through the lens of integrating our communities more? Because when you live next to someone who looks different from you, who worships differently from you, from different background, different experiences, your worldview broaden. You're someone with
it
more
does.
empathy, more
Yeah.
understanding. There's one way that we can see how does reparation at least make us more integrated and more understanding and accepting of each other.
There you go. Absolutely. So we have reached the end, but I want to ask you one final question before you go. For voters who are still undecided or may feel disconnected from politics altogether, what would you say to earn their trust and show them that their voice truly matters in your election?
I mean, I have family members who fall within that line. And I think the first thing I say is for a lot of those people, they are right to feel that way because you have had politicians for so many generations who come and, overpromise and underdeliver. And to now not trust politicians to solve the issues, to me, that makes sense. Unfortunately, however, if you disengage from the system, that is you giving the only power you have. So what
Right.
you want to do is double down, dig deeper. And this is not my own idea, but there is a US senator. She says, find one issue that you care passionately about. What is that thing for you? Put all your time and energy into it. Maybe that issue for you is not a political campaign. It's not a candidate. It's not a race. It is literally quite an issue. Is it education? Is it immigration? Is it lack of affordable housing? It is overspending on a war that we don't need. Is it some type of foreign policy? Find that issue, dig deep, invest your time in it, and push hard and advocate. It will give you more of a sense of purpose, more expertise where you feel like you're more in control of it and more focus. And you could actually, if you narrow your focus and dig deeper, you have a better chance of really making an impact and being a better advocate for that issue that you choose.
Wow. If I were in Connecticut in District 1, I would probably vote for you. In fact, I know I would vote for you, but I'm in Ohio, so all I can do is promote you, Ruth Fortune. This has been amazing. This
Thank
has
you.
been
Thank you.
amazing. Oh, so refreshing. Gosh, I wish I
I
had
will
more
quickly
time.
add my website is
Oh, right. Yes.
ruthfortuneforcongress.com.
How
Yes,
can
please
people
check out
find
my
you and support
website.
you?
Check out my website, ruthfortuneforcongress.com. I see it there on the screen.
And
You
your
can sign up to volunteer, get in touch with us. We're very people powered, grassroots. Would love to have you. You can make calls virtually from anywhere.
okay.
And we'll be having weekends of action to get signatures to get on the ballot. And once we're on the ballot, to knock on doors. So would love to have you involved.
That's awesome. Hey, y'all, check out Ruth at her website, Ruth Fortune. Let me see, very tiny, ruthfortuneforcongress.com. They can also donate to your campaign through your website, right?
Yes, absolutely. We have Act Blue. It makes it easy and secure to donate, and every dollar helps.
Yes, it does. We have talked about this so many times. These campaigns, they're expensive. The advertising, just even getting out on the street because you have to take time away from work to do it. So people, if you could spare a dime, spare a dollar, spare some time, whatever you can do, please give to these grassroots candidates that we are featuring here. We have more coming up tomorrow, April 2nd. We have, you see it on the screen, Brandon Brown, who is running for U.S. Senate out of the great state of South Carolina at 6 o'clock p.m. And then we have Salam Bahadi, who is running for the Virginia U.S. House of Representatives, District 1 at 8 o'clock. So we have 2 federal seats that we're going to be discussing tomorrow, one from South Carolina and one from Virginia starting at 6 o'clock. We hope you will join us, everyone in the audience. And you too, Ruth, you can come back. Actually, if you want, we're having there you go, a roundtable on April 12th. We have candidates we featured in the past come and talk about current events and how their campaign is going, and really just kind of kick around ideas and let the world know again that they are running. Name recognition is important in these races. A lot of grassroots candidates aren't getting it because, you know, the incumbent overshadows or there's some other big candidate. So we want you all to get your name out there as much as possible. So you will be receiving an email from us about April 12th, or if you can't make that one, we have one April 26th. I know your primary is it in August?
August, correct.
August. Okay. So your primary is in August. You have a little bit of time. So April 12th or April 26th, we do this every other Sunday. We would love to have you at either of those. Also, for those in the audience who want to do what I do and talk to a political candidate for hours and hours and hours and hours, you are welcome to send us a DM and let us know if you're interested. Also, you can join our Discord. The link is in our bio. We would love to have you on our Discord too, Ruth. We welcome candidates.
Yes.
We welcome we welcome candidates. We welcome their supporters. We welcome outsiders. We want all the people in there talking about politics and races and getting people to the polls because the primaries are so important. Oh my God, they're so important. And people aren't voting in the primaries. And then they show up in November and they're like, oh, it's the same old candidates. And it's like, yeah, because you didn't vote in the primary.
Yep.
So we're doing this thing to help get people to the polls, but also to educate people. That's one of our most important roles, is to educate people. And I feel like you did that very well, Ruth. I mean, you really did.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and this will be on YouTube in a couple of days, so you can watch it back and you can clip some of your best responses and put that all over your social media because you have some really good ones. You have some really good ones. Again, thank you to the audience. Thank you for the engagement and for the questions. And to Ruth, again, thank you for being here with us. I am Ayana Fakir, and this is Our Vote Counts, a nonpartisan movement uniting Americans from all walks of life to empower voters, support candidates of integrity like Ruth Fortune, and ensure every voice is heard through education, outreach, accountability, and action. We are building a stronger democracy, one informed vote at a time. We thank you for joining us. Remember, your vote is your power. Have a good evening, everyone, and see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.